Vishavahayi. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Section 8, Satsanga Sudha. Together. Satsanga Sudhaya Tata Mana Ananditam Yada Nishchetavyam Tada Mohat Mama Muktir Bhavishyati. Sadhananam hi sarvesham varishtha sadhu sangatihi. Etaya siddhaya siddham sarvameva hi sadhanam. Shashvadishvara bhaktaye virakta samadarshanaha. Sadhavasevitavyaste Moksha Shastra Visharadaha. Okay, just FYI that something is blinking over here. Should it be blinking?
Oh, no, it should be recording.
Okay. Yeah, when red things blink, it is time to talk about it. Yeah. So these three we have done. Just to introduce this again, Satsanga Sudha, which is translated as the nectar of the company of the wise, is not company. It's association. It's not that you hang out with the wise and have tea with them, Yeah, although that sounds like fun, there's much more fun to be had to study with the people, So company of the wise means being under the apprenticeship or tutelage of a Mahatma. That is what is called Satsanga Sudha. All other association are false. Sound is not okay. Why? Tilt that microphone more towards that, and if need be, increase the microphone please. Now, is it better? Is it better now? Oh, it's probably not. No. Is everybody having a problem with the sound?
Is it up?
The correct microphone needs to be selected off that since we had unplugged the blue ball.
Oh, okay.
Select microphone.
Select microphone. Blue ball. Correct. How about now? Now. Now. Finally. Yeah. Okay, everybody is happy. Fantastic. So, Satsanga Sudha is a very nice section on why crave for the company of the sadhu. Company translated here as association. Sangha is association. Why to associate with the sadhu, especially when the sadhu doesn't want to associate with you? Sadhu is fine by himself, herself. Sadhu doesn't need to be kept in good humor. Sadhu doesn't need to be, taken out for an airing or to be. Sadhu is not high maintenance. In fact, the definition of sadhu is one who is low maintenance. That is sadhu. Okay. So, low maintenance. So, if sadhu is low maintenance, then sadhu is not pining for you. Why, if sadhu is not pining for me, why should I pine for the sadhu? And that was described in the first 3 verses, that sadhu is the key to freedom. Because sadhu, the teacher here, sadhu means the teacher, moksha shastra visharadaha, they who are visharada, means they have PhD in how to give moksha. And when do you get a PhD in how to give moksha? When you get moksha yourself. So that is the PhD, it is, and the thesis is you, the hypothesis is you, and everything is you. And what is to be proved is you, and that you doesn't require any proof because it is svata siddhatvat, it is self-shining. And so we have seen these 3 verses. And now we look at the 4th verse, because it is delineating the qualities of a sadhu. How should the sadhu be? Yesham darshana matrena mokshe shraddha vivardhate yeshancha vagvilasena
येषां च वाग्विलासेन
संशयो विनिवर्तते.
संशयो विनिवर्तते.
Yeah, so in addition to the qualification mentioned above, what are the qualifications we saw? Shashvad Ishvara Bhaktaye, the ones who are committed to Ishvara. Viraktaha, they have Vairagya. Samadarshanaha, they have equanimity. And then what else? And Moksha Shastra Visharadaha, they are experts in communicating the Shastra, of Moksha, Vedanta Shastra Visharadaha. And then few more qualifications of the sadhu is added. And because the Narahari, the author, doesn't want you to go after some sadhu that looks good and has got a big following, and then what, has got lot of paraphernalia, huge big ashrams, and fanfare, lights, blink and camera action, lot of things are happening, and then nothing by way of moksha. And being permanently bound to such sadhus, within quotes, one is unable to see the light and see the truth of themselves because there is no teaching going on. And it's very true, in a lot of ashrams even now, you just go and you do karma seva, karma yoga. What they mean is seva without pay, and you just go to the ashram for a weekend and you go there to relax supposedly, but you wash the dishes and come back. At home also you are washing the dishes. What did you get? Nothing, other than maybe you lost some weight sweeping the ashram and washing the dishes. Nothing wrong in doing Gurukula seva. In some ragadveshas you left behind, that is good. But the thing is, there is no teaching going on. There is just maybe worship or just seva. That is, so Narahari doesn't want us to fall prey to those kinds of sadhus. So he takes great pains in describing what kind of a sadhu's association you should long for and pine for, not just a fly-by-night, sadhu who announces his or her presence with a single sign, neon sign saying sadhu here. What is that? Neon arrow, flashing arrow, sadhu here. And that is not the point. So sadhu doesn't advertise himself or herself. The qualities of the sadhu, quietly do that what Krishna does, akarshanti, they draw, they sadhavaha akarshanti, they draw the seekers unto themselves, not by, distributing leaflets, come one, come all to the all sadhu ball. No, that's not what is being done here. We are not going distributing leaflets, and neither are we advertising this is what it is and all these things. But what we are doing is just, what is happening here is that the sadhu is just being themselves. The sadhus are just being themselves. People are attracted to them. And why are they attracted and how they are attracted is given in this one. So, yesham darshana matrena. Because usually people don't know much about moksha. But they are pining for darshan. What darshan? Darshan of cantaloupe. No. Darshan of what? Bhagavan. Ishvara. That is the only darshan. What other darshan is there? And Ishvara not being locally available, and this sadhu advertising himself or herself as the stand-in for Bhagavan becomes, sometimes people make a beeline. In India it is called God-man, even God-woman is called God-man. Anyhow, so this so-called God-man, everybody makes a beeline, and, and it costs money also. Yeah. Going to temple is free to see Bhagavan, but going to see sadhu sometimes costs money. They will charge at the door itself. And this happened one time. I was teaching in Washington DC in a hall, and there was another auditorium next door, and suddenly, there was a lot of commotion there, lot of bhajans and commotion. And then when we had the class break, they said, can you please give us an extra break? There is a great Mahatma there. We would like to have his darshan and come back. I said, please go ahead, no problem. Instead of 15-minute break, we'll take half an hour break because the darshan line is very long. So you can go have darshan. And then to my surprise, everybody came back. within the allotted 5-10 minutes itself they came back. I said, what happened? So quickly you had darshan? No, it costs $151 just to have darshan. Yeah. And so yesham darshana matrena vairagyam, vairagya from what? From your pocketbook. That should not be the darshan. That should not be the kind of darshan that you go away and come back unburdened of your savings. That unburdened you should come back, but not of your savings. So Narahari is because he was writing at a much later time, where Kali Yuga had nicely set in. It was not Adi Shankara's time, where there were still people, who were honest and who were doing this. Adi Shankara doesn't talk about these false prophets and all these things. But Narahari, by the time he was around, there was a lot of these people there. 1798 means it's not that long ago. So then he probably had encountered a few people, and he didn't want us to get under the shadow of what are called the false prophets and self-styled prophets and self-styled Bhagavans. I am Bhagavan, but you are not, and I was Bhagavan, but you will never be. This kind of a thing. That is not Tattvamasi. Tattvamasi. Here it's Tat Aham Asmi alone, not you. And so this is not that. To show that there are certain additional qualifications. So the first one is, in the other general sadhus, you also go for darshan, correct? Here also this sadhu is also giving darshan. And what is the difference? In the other darshan, you pay. Here you are given a gift. You don't pay. And so, yesham darshana matrena mokshe Shraddha vivardate. Ichha or Shraddha, what is there? Mokshe, Shraddha, very beautiful. Mokshe, Shraddha vivardate. Vivardate means increases. Shraddha, trust. Trust in what? That in is put in 7th case. What's in 7th case? In the verse, Mokshe, 7th case. So, the one by whose just sight you just lay your eyes upon this sadhu, and immediately you feel like leaving everything and following the person. Not necessarily following the person, but leaving everything and going, being very steadfast in your commitment to the truth. Because till now you were committed, but you were kadachit kaha, means ayaram, gayaram, mostly gayaram, not aya. Mostly Gaya, means sometimes there, sometimes not there, mostly not there, little bit here, little bit there. Such was the situation. Now what? Now you have a new, new understanding. And not that the sadhu has talked. The sadhu, just is sitting there and looking at the sadhu, you say, I want to be just like that. This is what Pujya Swamiji was. He drew everyone like a magnet unto him. And if people didn't even understand Vedanta, they would still like to come and sit in the talk, even though they did not understand a single word. Sometimes people not knowing English would come. All the aunties, the mommies would come and sit, elderly ladies. And then he would say, Purunjada, did you understand? And they would say, no. Then why are you here? No, because we can't be away from you. They would say like that. So that is the whole idea, that seeing that person, you immediately, the best of you is brought out. There are two kinds of people. People that bring the worst in us and people that bring out the best in us. Usually the closer you are to a person, the worst in you comes out. Right? That's what is all about close relationships. And then you justify it by saying, if I can't scream at you, who else will I scream at? So keep quiet. Why you have to, I'm screaming because I'm close to you. What a rationale. It's a very sorry, sad rationale. If you're close to somebody, you shouldn't scream. But no, that's not how it works in, real life or real life. What happens? If you are close to somebody, you end up unloading everything onto them, vomiting up all the ragadveshas from so many years. This is what you do. You can't keep it inside, because they become a what is that? Litmus, whatever, lightning rod. They become a lightning rod of transference. That's what it is. They become a good conductor of your transference. This is what happens. But here also close association with the sadhu should bring out the worst? No. The sadhu brings out the best and the best in you. But how does the sadhu know how to bring out the best in me? The sadhu knows how to bring out the best in you. They are not trying to bring out anything in you. They are living the best of themselves, which is their own swarupa. So when you see somebody so firmly established in themselves, they are just being themselves. There is no artifice, there is no, what is that kind of pretentiousness, facade. I'm so enlightened that I levitate most of the time, and I'm so enlightened that I don't go to the bathroom, and people have all kinds of things. That's what one holy man did. He made this thing, and I always cite this example because it was in this state itself, in Oregon. And so one person said that, and made the followers say that our guru doesn't go to the bathroom. And one committee came and checked, and of course in that whole apartment there was no bathroom. And then after he died and everything was because there was a lot of gadbad there, a lot of problems were there, and everything was confiscated. And then they found that under the bed there was a trap door with a narrow set of stairs leading to the bathroom. Why all this? Just go to the bathroom. Each time you want to go to the bathroom, you break your back climbing down those, the dungeon, stairs. And like this. So such a person here, a Vedanta teacher, should not have. And, this kind of a pretense, this kind of a persona of quote-unquote enlightenment. I'm so enlightened that I'm above you, you are beneath me. I don't have anything to say to you. And so somebody comes, I'm indifferent, because the only verse of the Gita that was read is Samadarshanaha. So, therefore, whoever comes, I don't care. Whoever goes, I don't care. That is not the point. You don't have to show off asangatvam. You don't have to show off that you are uninvolved, because you are naturally uninvolved. That is your swarupa. The beauty of it is, even though when you are quote-unquote involved, you are uninvolved. The sadhu knows that. And so the sadhu does not fear involvement as though, because it is very well known that it is as though. So what does it take to say hello? What does it take to connect with a person? What does it take to say a few words of kindness? What does it take to be compassionate? Nothing. And everything. It doesn't take anything, really speaking, but it takes that the knowledge of oneself as everything to abide in that. That's what it takes. And therefore, the whole thing is very beautiful. So, yesham darshana matrena, just by their very sight, since they are abiding in themselves, they are being totally free and totally themselves. And that self which they are abiding in is the self that you want to be. You want to be that. But how do you know I want to be that? I know you want to be that because everybody wants to be that. Do you want to be more compassionate? Don't say no, okay? Yeah. Of course not. I want to be more compassionate, yes. Do you want to be more accommodative? Yes. Do you want to be more pleasant? Yes. Do you want to manage your anger better? Yes. Do you want to manage all the other emotions, jealousy, fear, etc. better? Sorrow better? Yes. So that there you have it. The sadhu is already modeling that behavior, and modeling not just the behavior but that very persona, that swarupa. And so seeing the person, the best in you automatically comes out. Immediately you feel nobler, you feel gentler, you feel very compassionate. And we saw this around Pujya Swamiji. As long as he was sitting there, everybody was very nice to each other. And the moment he got up and left, all the disgruntlement, that was the time, if it came out, it would come out at that time. It was just really interesting to see. Very, very interesting to see. And so like this, the sadhu is not trying to bring out the best in you. It's not an action. Just like everything looks better in the daylight, because the sun is shining and everything is lit up. That's all. Just like that, your inner light, it comes to greet, that which it sees and recognizes as itself. So in the sadhu, you recognize the truest, the most authentic and the brightest and the best of yourself, which is impartite, which is whole, which is limitless. There is an immediate recognition, and that's why there is an immediate feeling better. And then the point is not to become a satsang-holic. Yeah, I went to satsang, I sat in front of the teacher, I felt wonderful. Therefore, go back again, sit in front of the teacher, become wonderful. Then leave the teacher's side, become miserable, cry on the way home, then come back again. And you become a teacher addict. Yeah, that's not the point. So, that feeling better is not a contact high. No, it's not like taking some substance and then ODing on that and feeling wonderful. That's not what it is. So many substances make you feel better. I'm not going to sit and name them, but you can fill in the blanks. Make the person feel better. So is the sadhu also yet one more experience? No, the sadhu is not an experience outside of you. The sadhu is yourself. But how can the sadhu model be, I am the so and so? When you say I am so and so, you are counting the ragadveshas. That's what you put on shadi.com computer profile, marriage.com. That's what you put. I like this, I don't like this. And then that's what the spouse to be also puts. The significant other wannabe also puts the same thing. I like this, I don't like this. So a bunch of ragadveshas get married to a bunch of another ragadveshas. Here, that's not what is happening. It's not that, you are getting a contact high by getting what you were wanting, and in this contact there is some kind of a magic. There is no magic. The magic is you really. You are the one that is awesome. And until you set foot in the satsang hall, you didn't feel awesome. You felt awful. From awful to awesome, it feels like a 1 minute transformation. An incredible transformation that one has difficulty believing and seeing the truth of, and therefore from ignorance one ascribes it to the sadhu. Naturally, because this is Anvaya Vyatireka method badly abused. So, presence of sadhu, feeling good. Absence of sadhu, feeling bad. So therefore, the cause of feeling good is what? Sadhu. Wrong logic. Wrong understanding. So, really speaking, that sadhu is modeling who you are. That's why in their presence there is a certain quietude. Even if they may not be teaching. Darshana matrena means before they encounter the words, before the sadhu has a chance to open the mouth and say hello, just even the look itself is enough to quieten everything, all the ragadveshas that were jumping up and down, restless, fearful, tearful. This jiva comes in, all burdened, and then immediately there is a feeling of upliftment. And here, that can happen even with somebody who is a jnani, but who doesn't know how to teach, correct? But here, we are not talking of a jnani who is a brahmanishtha but not a shrotriya. Shrotriya means knows how to teach. Brahmanishtha means the one who is fully committed to this life of being Brahman or assimilating this knowledge. And so, therefore, here the darshanam of the sadhu is not causing you to feel better. That's not the cause of you feeling better. What is happening here is a transference of the very nice kind. It's a nice transference because I'm ascribing something that is not there to the person there Why? Because that person has indeed modeled what I really want, who I really am, but I am unable to live that. So the sadhu becomes a deliberate stand-in for that Brahman I want to be, and I want to be means understand. That Brahman which I don't know I am, the sadhu becomes a fully fledged, fully blossomed flower for a bud that is waiting to bloom. The bud wants to bloom. So the bud looks around and sees a fully blossomed flower and says, that's me. No, but that's not you. You're a little shriveled up thing. No, that's really me. I may look like this, but that's really me. That's where I'm headed. That's my goal. That's what I want to be like. And this person is modeling what I really am. So that is why the sadhu becomes very dear and darshan becomes very sacred because of this reason. So the darshana, yesham darshana matrena, by whose mere darshan, matra means just the darshan. What happens? Not just a sense of upliftment, because the person going there is a seeker. They are not going for a contact high. But this sadhu brings out the seeker in you. Mokshe shraddha vardhate, vivardhate. So you thought you will get a contact high, but looking at the sadhu, you immediately said, I want to gain what he or she has. How did they gain? That is what I want to do. Oh, they gained it by study. I also want to study. So you just want to follow the sadhu, not because they make you feel good, but because they have something to teach you that you do not know. And how do you know they have something to teach you? By the life they lead. But how do you know what life they lead? You just saw them for 2 minutes. That's enough. That's what is called Shraddha. That's faith pending understanding. And if there is not a severe blockage on the part of the student with regard to authority issues, and if that unconscious is not blocked and having resistance to authority figures, then this becomes a very effective way of effective trust. And the trust is so complete and so deep that you don't know anything about the person, and you just go. And you know that you will be fine. You know you are going to be fine. You know that you will not come to any harm. No, but what if I come to harm? You take the plunge. That's what it is. You take the plunge. And there are so many stories told in so many traditions. There was one Zen sadhu. Zen masters have some very extreme ways. And this sadhu did not want students. Yeah. And did not want to give darshan either. Went off on a hilltop so that nobody would come. Still people were climbing and coming because such is the attraction of the true sadhu. And as people were climbing and coming, he had a very extreme method of driving them away. He would take a rock and then hit the person trying to climb up to say, I want to be your student. And instead of getting jnanam, they would get a concussion and go back. That's what he was doing. So of course, after a while, people stopped coming because this is a very effective way of, saying, shoo, I want to be left alone. Perhaps this sadhu was eccentric, or perhaps just wanted to be left alone. We don't know the story. It's from ancient Japan. And then what happened? That, one student a student wannabe, was so determined, he thought that he will scale the mountain from behind, which was full of shrubs and thorns and a lot of, landslides, and it was actually like, climbing a wall, because this other side which had a little bit of indentations and steps, etc. This was just like, scaling a wall. So like a monkey, somehow with all cuts, scratches, bruises, he had so much shraddha that he just said, if I catch hold of his feet, I will have jnanam. That's not how jnanam comes, but you have to give full marks for his shraddha. Shraddha means reverence pending understanding. He had so much reverence, amazing amount of reverence. And he said, all I have to do is catch hold of his feet. And he caught hold of his feet because the sadhu was surprised. You know, the sadhu was surprised because he heard some noise but he couldn't see anybody coming. So he kept looking in the wrong direction. And then suddenly his feet have been caught and he turned around and accidentally dropped he was carrying a boulder that day and he flattened the student, wannabe, Sashtanga Namaskara right there. And he didn't drop it on purpose. He was so startled that he turned around and that rock just went and flattened the student. And then he lifted the rock and, student was alive. And not only alive, student was enlightened. Ancient story. But that story is told to illustrate the power of Shraddha. Shraddha means you delight in not knowing. That is Shraddha. You don't delight in knowing. That's not Shraddha. That's boring. Yeah. When you delight in knowing, that's just one of the mill. That's just, everybody is delighted. Finished. But this delight is greater because you delight always in not knowing where you are going, not knowing your destination, not knowing your destiny, not caring to know your destiny, and not worrying about the future, and not obsessing about the past. This is Shraddha. So in other words, Shraddha is trust. Shraddha means a total trust. In what? In the teacher and the Shastra as an effective means of knowledge for me to see myself. So the trust in the teacher. And here is where, everything starts to shake. What if the teacher does something bad? What if the teacher, is a swindler? Not a teacher, but a swindler. What if the teacher is, has moral decrepitude? What if the teacher is just somebody that I put up on the heights and then they drop down? Who put them up on the heights? You yourself. Who dropped them down? You. They were there only, correct? Yeah. So do you blame the teacher or do you blame your own transference? That's what it is. So the transfer, but how to not have the transference? You cannot not have the transference. No, but then how to not suffer from the transference? You will suffer from the transference, but the suffering is as though you are not suffering from the teacher. You are suffering because you are looking for some ideal person to hang your coat on. Yeah. To hang all your hopes and desires on, and the teacher shakes you off because the teacher doesn't want to be a hat, coat, peg. Yeah. That's what it is. You want somebody to hang your hopes on, and the teacher refuses to be a peg. And then therefore, that is a teaching. That is actually a teaching. Oh, then where shall I take my, coat of high hopes? Dismantle the coat of high hopes. Really. So, if you get disappointed in the teacher, and if the teacher is, what should the teacher be? The teacher should be able to teach. That's really the qualification of the teacher. So if the student gets disappointed in the teacher, that's a good sign. Because the scales of wrong ideas, Shobhana Adhyasa, is falling down. Shobhana Adhyasa means a positive transference. This is what happens with the therapist also. In the beginning, the therapist looks wonderful. And then on the fourth visit, the therapist confesses that he or she is also having marital problems. Finished. You went to solve your marital issues and then found out on the fourth or fifth visit that the therapist is also having marital problems. Oh, I don't want to see you ever again. Or the therapist is late, therapist has indigestion. And so all this, it's not the therapist's fault. Therapist was having marital problems even before the first visit. Okay? Yeah, it's not that only on the fourth visit therapist had marital problems. Therapist had marital problems in the first marriage, in the second marriage, in the third marriage, and now in the fourth marriage also. Natural. So what's the big deal? It's not that you suddenly, you discovered this. It was already there. No, but I thought he was not like that. Then the problem is you have to correct your vision. You know, it's not that the therapy has become inefficacious. The therapy has become inefficacious because your Shraddha has gone down. And the Shraddha is not there in positive transference because it's a hyperbole of trust. And that also is not you trusting, it's the inner child trusting. Because the inner child is desperate to, because the parents have given up on it, or so it thinks. And then who else? Oh, no, nobody is there for me. You know, nobody likes me, nobody loves me. I am abandoned, I am alone. And then you meet Yesham darshana matrena mokshe shraddha vivardhate. Already the Guru is sitting on a pedestal and you put a few more inches underneath. You put some, bricks and sticks and stones and bricks and bones, and then you yourself go underneath like a kurma, like a tortoise, and hold the Guru up. Then you can't stand the weight, and then the Guru drops down, and then you say, see, fall of the Guru, useless Guru, fell down. Yeah. What fell down was your scaffold, very bad construction, because if the inner child is an architect, the foundation is not laid properly. Like a child builds something with a Lego set, doesn't even stand, it falls immediately. What fell down was the house of cards of your own hopes and desires to find that perfect person because you were hurt so much in your childhood. So sad, but it's true. The Guru is not that person. And the Guru is just a teacher. Teaches, that's all. If the Guru can teach, that's all you have to see. The Guru makes you see what you cannot see and what you want to see. That's what is the only qualification. If the Guru can do that, doesn't matter, It's not about hanging your hopes up. Guru is not a coat hanger, to hang up your, coat of despair and disillusion. It is illusionment on this little peg, Guru peg. No. So that is what is Shobhana Adhyasa, comes crumbling down, and that's why in the beginning everybody is very excited about Vedanta. They are not excited about Vedanta. This darshana matrena takes place. There is a positive transference. Everything starts to look good. Oh, I'm going to take all the classes that were ever offered all the time. And then after that, it's called soda bottle enthusiasm. You open the can, what happens? Yeah, fizz, bubbles, noise, lots of noise. And after a while, thanda, flat and tepid. This is what happens. So what happened to Jigyasa? Desire to learn. Jigyasa was overpowered by what? By the desire to just be near the sadhu for the wrong reasons. That's what happened. So here, therefore, it is very clearly said. So let me finish this before I'm getting ahead of myself. So after the positive transference, what comes? This is a leading question. The answer is in the question. After positive transference, kya aayega? What comes? Negative transference. Because once that whole house of cards of my hopes and desires that this person will make me feel better, this is the only person I can trust, and this is the only thing. And the Guru has a very unusual way of dealing with them. This is not deliberate. It just happens. It just happens. That the person who wants to get most noticed somehow slips out all the time. Yeah, it happens. It's not an accident. It happens. It's not that the Guru is doing it deliberately. It just happens. And that's how the law is. It's a law. And if the Shraddha is true, then the person overcomes this mad desire for mad things to happen. And so here, the negative transference immediately takes the place of its sister, positive transference. And what does the negative transference look like? Oh, I just cursed the day I met this person. Such an idiot, such an idiotic teacher has time for everyone except me. Looks at everyone except me. He's kind to everyone, but when I come, the teacher frowns. Maybe the teacher had to sneeze or go to the bathroom. Think about that next time. Had to blow their nose or something. Yeah. No, only when I come, the teacher gets up and goes away. So these are all ingredients for negative transference, imbuing upon the actions upon the teacher, my own fears and my own abandonment. This is negative transference. So the student goes through the spin cycle of both. And then you come to a resting place. Hopefully with Bhagavan's grace. Yeah, that is the prayer, really. This is where the grace works. We saw, Anugraha. I didn't have much time in the Amrita. I would have liked a little more time in Amrita Bindu. We should have had a few more extra classes. And that last verse, Tasya Anugraha Deva, it was said that Anugraha includes the staying power to ride out this transference, to ride out the positive transference, to welcome the negative transference and be the Sakshi, Nataka Deepa. Yeah, the 1 month course continues. The Nataka Deepa, to be the theatre lamp and watch these tsunami of emotions, either joyless or joyful, both of them, and to just ride it out. That is what it is. So, therefore, after riding it out, what happens to the student? Mokshe Shraddha Vivardhate. The student is neither soda bottle, not a Coca-Cola bottle, and not somebody who is ready to, what is that? Punish the Guru because so mad at the Guru. And so somewhere in between, then finds in oneself the true desire for the knowledge. Not to hang out with the Guru, not Guru's companionship, not the Guru as a peg of my hopes or a peg of my disasters, to hang my disasters and hopes. No. To hang my rejection and dejection. No. So when it comes to a stasis, it's like a pendulum. You set it in motion and you can't just expect it to stop. It has to go the full length this way, it has to go the full length that way, and then it has to just come, Sve Mahimni Tishtati, it has to come and rest in its own place. That is the place when the teaching actually begins. Sometimes it's a few years. Why sometimes? Many times. It's a few years because the teaching doesn't begin until the transference has resolved. And this is one of those things. Until the transference is there, the studentship is not recognized. Very interesting. And the transference is a natural part of the teaching process. But it is safe because there is no counter transference. The teacher is not putting a transference on you. You are the only one having the transference. So therefore it resolves quicker. Unlike other relationships, where you say some things to the person and the person says, 10 other things back to you. Here it's all one-sided. So therefore it just dissolves. And then what happens when you look at the teacher only as an avenue, as a road to moksha, a GPS, Guru Paduka Stotram, road map to moksha. You just see the teacher as a road map. You transcend the physical traits, tall, short, thin, fat, all these things. You transcend the habits, habitual traits. Oh, the Guru has coughs, the Guru eats, the Guru drinks, eats too much, drinks too much, doesn't do this, doesn't do that. I wish I wish the Guru bathed more often. All these thoughts, you just, you transcend. Just like saying touch wood, you transcend the, you transcend the table to understand that it is wood. So you transcend the personality of the teacher after going through these transferences, and you reach the person, and that person inspires you to be who you already are, to understand yourself. So just seeing that person, it's a person-to-person contact. That person in you is seeing the person in the other, and the person is Purusha, one and the same. And then the desire not for the teacher arises, the desire for the Purusha arises. And that Purusha, this Purusha only can give, because I know it, but I am in the unenviable position that it is occluded from me. So when that transference comes to rest, Mokshe Shraddha vivardhate. Finally I am on the right track, and in moksha I have trust in the Guru as just as a roadmap, as a guide to that moksha. I have trust. So therefore, that's why we say Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha. So in the Guru you invoke Bhagavan. Not because we are worshipping human beings. That's not what it is. Because we are worshipping Bhagavan through this presence, who is aware of itself completely, so completely that it is this presence is modeling how my presence is really like. And I can't see Bhagavan. The Guru stands in between me and Bhagavan, shows the way, and the Guru disappears. All is left is you and Bhagavan, nay, you as Bhagavan. That is what the Guru does. And so, the Guru is like a surgeon. You have to submit to the surgery. And Shraddha means submission. Because you don't argue with the doctor how much anesthesia you're giving. Show me all the scalpels you're going to use during the operation. What are you going to do afterwards? You're going to sew with that needle? That doesn't look right. Isn't there a smaller one? You don't do all that. You don't threaten the doctor. You don't say you don't have a guarantee. In fact, you sign off the guarantee if something happens. Nobody will sue you. My family members, exempt from telling you anything. So that is what it is. So in the doctor, during the surgery, you have full Shraddha. You submit to the operation, and the doctor doesn't want you talking side by side, disturbing her or him. So the doctor anesthetizes you. That's what it is. And same thing, Guru also anesthetizes you. Oh, but is it mass hypnosis or anything? No, through a few jokes, yeah. And those who have followed Pujya Swamiji's teachings closely will see that whenever he is about to say something extremely important, or whenever he has said something really path-breaking, he will make a joke. And why is that? Why did he just do that? Is he trivializing his own point? No. The joke is the anesthesia. And then the truth is coming either before it or after it, generally after it. The joke is the anesthesia. He has to put that thinker out, that knower has to be knocked off and rendered unconscious. Small concussion has to be given in the form of a very pleasing joke. And then the truth comes like that. That's the pedagogy. Because usually when two people come to the teachings, it's not one person. At least two people. One is the inner child, mommy, daddy, looking for a big, giant, biggest feeding bottle in the sky. That's what it is. Big feeding bottle. I saw this very nice, photo of, what is that called? National Geographic. And this baby hippo is born, okay? And the mother hippo says, "You're not mine. I don't know whose you are." Mother had a few days to accept it. Mother took a few days. She had postpartum depression. Who? Mummy hippo. And I don't know where they got this, they must have made it specially for this. Such a big bottle. And such a big, nipple at the end of the bottle. And then this hippo is baby hippo, happily in 1 minute it's gone. And then it has to be refilled. One person is carrying it with great difficulty, and this one is burping it up, no problem. Everything is going in, 2-3 bottles at a time. It was very tiring for the first few days. Thank God the mother accepted it after the 4th day. Otherwise, this is what it is. So this is the person who comes. Inner hippo, motherless, fatherless, give me my feeding bottle. Poor Guru. Guru has to stop feeding bottles to feed this person. No, joke se kaam chal jayega. A few jokes the Guru will say. And the jokes makes the person feel wanted, makes the person feel like, oh, I was waiting for you, oh, I'm glad you came. Just a few words, few ways of, bringing the person in the fold, so to speak. So the baby, inner hippo is fed. Hippo means insatiable. I'm not insulting hippos, Yeah, hippo means insatiable, like this baby. Poor thing, it was just drinking hungrily. And then also that nipple, they showed that it was just too small. It was not coming out fast, so they had to cut it open so that the milk would just flow. This is what it was. Hippo milk. And so this is how it is. Some safari, some place. Because hippos are endangered. Because for that horn, we have been rhinos, hippos, we have been treating very badly. And so they were very, concerned that this baby should be saved. So too the Guru saves the baby, but just barely so, enough to keep it quiet, so that once it's fed, it doesn't act out during class. And then it is sleeping, it has been fed, burped and changed, and it is sleeping. And actually who attends the class is the one for whom the class is, the adult. Usually the unresolved inner child and the adult both come to class. The inner child has the misperceptions and the projections. The hungry adult is wondering, when will I get the knowledge? That's what it is. So the art of resolving the inner child is there with the Guru, but it is not deployed in the manner that in which it is sought. What does the hippo want? Feeding bottle. What is given is a few drops, just to keep it going. Few drops of milk or little bits of food, that's all. But not as something to keep the addiction going, but as to diffuse the addiction to attention, to some kind of a feel good, and to direct the person, by whatever means necessary, to the Shastra. And sometimes the Guru will make sure that even at the cost of the student, quote unquote, hating the Guru, that student will be directed towards the Shastra. So, Yesham Darshana Matrena, the person who is so truly, authentically modeling themselves, Mokshe Shraddha Vivardhate. Seeing them, you feel like going for moksha, you feel like leaving everything behind, and you just want to follow them and learn from them. Such a person, one more qualification of the sadhu who can teach. And then what? This is before they talk. First line is before they talk. First line is feeding bottle, okay? And where the inner hippo is wonderful, okay? Then what happens now? The outer hippo, not outer hippo, the outer student is addressed in the second line. Yesham cha, by whom Vag vilasena samshayah vinivartate. Samshayah vinivartate. Vinivartate departs. What departs? Samshaya. What is samshaya? Doubts. All kinds of doubts depart. Oh, darshana matrena? No. Not just by seeing. By seeing you feel like going for moksha. And you feel like leaving everything behind because they are so inspiring just by sight. Just by their demeanor, they are so loving and inspiring, you feel like leaving everything. And what is the next one? And when they start talking, what happens? Yesham Vag Vilasena, all the doubts you had about yourself, about the Jagat, about Bhagavan, go away, completely go away. By whose vak? By whose speech? What kind of speech? Vilasa. Vilasa. Not of the knowledge. Of the knowledge, yes, correct. What kind of speech? Adjective to speech. Adverbial is vilasa. Vilasa has many meanings. Vilasa means skilled. Vilasa means playful. Vilasa means sportive. Vilasa also means clever. So the vak of the Guru is clever, sportive, playful, lures you in like the notes of Lord Krishna's flute. Who can resist that? Who can resist that? Like Pied Piper or Krishna's flute. Who can resist Krishna's flute? No one. All the gopis went behind. What about their milkmaids? What about their husbands? They also went behind. That's why they were not even jealous. The word Krishna means Karshati. So the notes of Krishna's flute are all what? They are all just beautifully aligned and so melodious that they are irresistible. The words of the Guru likewise make you dance in moksha, as moksha. They make you just be very, very free, and they make you understand that you are just so free that you don't want anything and anything other than this, because the words are deployed carefully, playfully, with skill and cleverness. Playful, because you have to play. Vedanta is not like, oh, you have to do this, you have to do that, and first you have to get Shama, and then what? Let me think, Dhamma, and you should not cut any slack here, Shama, Dhamma, and then after that you better have Uparati before you come to the next class, and otherwise you can't come to the next class. Then you have Titiksha, then you have Shraddha, then you have Samadhanam, and then, and then we'll see. And then Mumukshutvam, and then Viveka Vairagya, of course, didn't I mention that already? So you have to have all these things. That kind of a guru needs some work, from their guru. Yeah, it's not a full-fledged guru. A guru who's not yet shuru, means who's not started. Yeah. So, therefore, there is playfulness. Why? The playfulness is in recognizing that the problem that the student faces is not real. That's where the words can play. If everything is real, the student's problem is real, the guru is real, student is real, everything is real, then the guru will have a big headache. So many years I have been teaching, nobody got moksha. One guru could say that. Nobody is understanding what's wrong with all these people. Oh, how will they get free? Oh, what should I do? There's nothing to do. Because it's a problem that really does not exist. It's like a person who comes in from outside and says, snake, I've been bitten by a snake. And you say, where? Show me. I don't know where, but it's been bitten. They can't show the bite, so you take off their clothes and look for fang marks. No fang mark. Then you say, let's go see in the garden, can you identify the snake? Yeah, if it's still there, I can identify it. Okay, let's go. There, that's the snake that bit me. And the person who is very agitated and is convinced that they're having a Socrates effect, hemlock effect of all the poison slowly coming from the tippy toes to the nose. It's all coming. And they're feeling already, I'm losing sensation in the legs, quick, I need an antidote. And then what? They show the rope lying in the grass. There is no snake. And if the teacher says, I don't have time for the likes of you, that teacher needs to go back to their teacher and learn for some more time. And if that is of not any use, they need to change their teacher, go to another teacher. This is where the compassion comes in, this is where the kindness comes in, because they are unable to see that they are not really bit and that the rope cannot bite. So you can't go after them, chasing them with a rope and saying, look, it can't bite. This is beyond logic. That's what it is. Ignorance is beyond logic. We don't know how it got there. You can't rationalize, therefore ignorance. How? What therefore? It's not a deduction. And quote-unquote knowledge is also beyond logic, because it's a knowledge of something that's strange. This whole thing is full, you have to laugh, otherwise you'll cry. That's what it is. You have to laugh at the whole thing. So you can't tell the person, this is rope is inert, snake is sentient, snake bites, rope doesn't bite. That person is in shock, agitation. So what do you have to say? Upayaha asti. I have a remedy. Really? You got antidote? Yes. I don't have antidote for rope, but I have antidote for aropa. Yeah. Aropa means the seeing something that's not there. Putting something on something else. Adhyasa, superimposition. So, I have a remedy. And the student or the person, the bitten person, thank God you have a remedy. I was tired. I really thought I had reached the end of my rope. So therefore I thought I was gone. I'm glad you are there for me, and I'm glad that you have done this. Thank you, 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 thank you. And then what? And then, then the student or the bitten person finally agrees to come inside. And the teacher should as though put a tourniquet on wrong notions. Yeah, keep them in suspension, yes. And some bloodletting also may be involved. A ghoulish, but a very effective practice. And so you let out all the things that don't belong, Yeah, you cut open all the notions and let it bleed out. Yeah, no problem. And then what? And then you inform, you tap them on the shoulder and inform finally that they were not really bitten. When they are calm enough, that this is really not a snake, that's also not enough, that this is indeed a rope, and that this mistake had been made and the mistake is being removed. Then why did you tie tourniquet? Because that was necessary at that time. As though tourniquet at that time, as though bloodletting at that time, and now you are ready for the knowledge. So you see, this is a very complex endeavor. It's not as simple as it looks. Because you cannot say that the problem is not there. Because the person is enduring the problem and is convinced that the problem is there. And you cannot say the problem is there because it's not really there. This is Maya, neither confirmed nor denied. It's there, it's not there, it's there for you to see and experience, but it is not really there. So that you can call its bluff. So the teacher here is very adept. How? All through the words. Words, the tourniquet is the words. Shabda tourniquet. Shabda bloodletting, all through the words. The miracle, Nishprapancham Prapanchate, this miracle of this whole universe is that through the words, the balm is applied, through the word, the tourniquet is applied, through the word, the bloodletting is done, through the playful words, keeping the student engaged, keeping them in thrall about what is to come next. Yes, what is to come next? What is to come next? And then allowing them to assimilate the knowledge. This is what is called Vag Vilasa. Not just, Vedanta, which feels like a dry bone, dry leaf. Nissara. It's not Nissara. Somebody went to Pujya Swamiji and said, Pujya Swamiji, whenever I teach about Ishvara, people get bored. And Pujya Swamiji just smiled and said, you come to a few classes when I teach about Ishvara, and then you learn some more and then teach the people. Yeah, because Ishvara is not boring, it's you. And you want to hear all about you. So, Yesham, Darshana Matrena, Moksha Shastre, Shraddha Vivardhate. There is Shraddha in the person, there is Shraddha in the Shastra, there is Shraddha in this knowledge. And then, this is even before they talk. What to talk of when this is completely gone. This is what it is. Upakramaditaatparya Lingaistatparya nirnayah Vishesha samanyataya Shastrarthanam vyavasthitihi Shastrarthanam vyavasthitihi. Yeah, we'll come back and see this after a little, a small break, 5-10 minutes. And what is happening? Something is happening with the recording. It stops at time. This one is not being recorded here. I don't think we record this on this. So, but you're right, something is blinking. I think that's the internet connectivity. So it's blinking a little bit. It's stuttering. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. So what we'll do is during the break, don't go away. We will just, turn it off and on and reboot it. So that's what we'll do. We'll turn the main switch off and on, and then we'll reboot it. So it is now 10:40 here, our time, and it's our internet here, which is stammering a little bit. So 10 minutes. Come back in 10 minutes. We'll reboot the internet. Okay.
I think it's that computer one.
Hmm?
I think it's that computer.
Did we say the closing prayer? Om Purnamada Purnam.
That's it. Please.
Sure.
Okay.
Absolutely. Is this better?
Oh, I'm so happy. It's been half an hour.
Kalamrala?
Taxi will come.
Oh, okay. See. Both of you are leaving now?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Right now?
Taxi ಬಂದಾಚಾ?
No, ಇನ್ನು ಕೊಂಚ ನೇರத்தில்
ಸರಿ ಬರ್ಟು ನೋ ಪ್ರಾಬ್ಲಮ್ ಟೇಕ್ ಕೇರ್.
Bob wanted a picture with Swamiji.
Who?
Bob, Krishna.
Oh, yeah, sure. Ask him to come.
Okay.
Both of them can sit here.
Krishna wanted a picture?
Sure, please. Yes, he'll
Okay. Yes, I thought they were staying top class, Swamiji.
Pardon me?
I thought they were staying top class. And the sun was still.
Each of these verses is so packed. There is so much to unfold, which is why this is, of course, it's true of all classes, all Vedanta. But the verses are very, very, oh, it needs to come up. Okay. Yeah, I'm coming with you in your car. Okay? Yeah. Rag Bilasa also means word play. Yeah. Vilasa play, Vag word, through word play. And we know how word play and Vedanta get along. Yes. Like a hippo and its milk bottle. Who else is missing?
Mr. Krishnan or?
Yeah, he'll come. Yeah, he'll come. That's okay. Then they have to go. No problem. Upakramadi tatparya lingaihi. No, I'm just saying it for me. Yeah, don't worry about it. You have already chanted it. Upakramadi tatparya lingaihi tatparya nirnayaha. So from the last verse, there is a little levity in the verse about Vag Vilasa, word play. Who is doing the word play?
The teacher.
Teacher, yeah. So the teacher is doing word play, and the teacher is having a gala time, and therefore the student is also having a gala time. There are so many jokes, there is so many nice things happening. And then sometimes, this is true, that people who came out of Pujya Swamiji's classes would only remember the jokes in the beginning of the study. So they would remember the story of the simply sitting Swami. Now this is not the time to tell those stories. This is just the time not to try to narrate the stories. For that we'll save another day. This is just the time to what is that? To count off those stories. The simply sitting Swami, Morari, the Baba, and the person Muppan who carried the lamp all over his head. And was looking for it, because this I will tell the story, very nice. Muppan was a servant, and in a big household where a wedding was taking place, and the master wanted to light up the place. And so he carried the lamp on the head, that's what they used to do. and he looked everywhere. Wherever he looked, there was light, and he came back with the lamp and said, "There is no unlighted place. Where shall I keep the lamp?" So people would remember this in the beginning. They would, they would remember Kuppan and Muppan, and they would remember Morari, and they would remember Simplicity Swami, and they would remember all these characters. And so if you ask them what was taught in class, they would only remember Vag Vilasa. So they had a gala time, they laughed a lot, and they remembered the jokes and the stories, Here's one more, can't resist, why is a human being like a tea bag? What is the similarity between the human being and a tea bag? Tea bag, human being? Come on, I have been called a dirt bag, but never a tea bag. What's the similarity anyway between human being and a tea bag? Their strength of both comes out when each is put in hot water. Put the human being in hot water and see how weak or strong they are. Hot water of samsara, yeah. And put the tea bag in hot water, and then you see how strong it is. So like this, this is all what people remembered. And so you had two lectures, depending on who you asked. If you ask the newcomers or people who just came for Darshana Matra and Vag Vilasa, this is all they got. And they were happy, they went away. Pujya Swamiji was happy with them, he was always happy. And they were happy, he went away, he was happy, they were happy. And that's all the length of the teaching was. That's all they remembered. That's all they could recall. And that was all that was, because the hippo, that was the hippo was still, addicted to the feeding bottle long after the milk is over, still, sucking at the bottle. This is what it was. And then later on, as one grew into the knowledge, one saw that even the jokes had a point. It was not a pointless joke. Yeah. In fact, the joke was, had a point. In fact, it was a jokeless point, a serious point, for which the joke was to illustrate which the joke was made. And people forgot the illustration, or it did not fire, to understand the illustration, it wasn't understood. But this is really what it was. So, and then, there was a wrong impression. Many people said, "Pujya Swamiji, you are so simple." He said, "I'm not simple, I'm clear. I have clarity, not simplicity. It's not about simple. I'm clear." And that clarity is, is almost, to the lay person who is looking at this, it looks like the clarity is undermined by the levity. Levity, Vag Vilasa. Correct? But that Vag Vilasa weaves in the word play and makes the most dull and serious topic something to revel in by bringing out that inner self that one is needing to connect. And when is the inner self brought out? Pratyagatma. When is that I come out? That I comes out and plays when it is happy. When it is happy, it plays, and it wants to continue being happy. That's when it plays. That's when it is completely out. And so what brings it out best is Vag Vilasa. So if you just take the superficial word play, Vag Vilasa, you miss out what is happening underneath. And what is happening underneath is given in the next verse. Beautiful. That's just absolutely very nice verse. What is happening underneath is that one is being fed, without knowing it. One is being fed the essentials and the technicalities of the Shastra so beautifully. Like Upakramadi Tatparya. So Tatparya means the how to understand what is the purport of an Upanishad, how to recognize the Upanishad, what are the how to recognize the intent and the meaning of something. And that there are what is called Shadlingaha. 6 kinds of indicators are there. Upakrama, Upasamhara, introduction and conclusion. And then there is, what's the next one? Apurva, the phala of it. What is the phala? What should the, Apurva means it's a means of knowledge. Then that Apurva gives rise to a fruit, phala. And then after that, Arthavada, meaning the Phalashruti, the praise of the subject matter at the end. And Upapatti means Nyaya, the use of logic. All these constitute the 6 kinds of, lingas, indicators to that solidifies a work of Vedanta, or these indicators are which we use to determine the Tatparya Nirnaya, to determine the intent of the person who is doing this. Okay? And so then what? Vishesha Samanyataya Shastrarthanam Vyavasthitihi. So Visheshena, specifically talking about the Shastra like Upakrama, Upasamhara, and Samanya, generally talking about the Shastra, the teaching is communicated. Very beautiful. Very beautiful. So, what is it saying here? That the Vag Vilasa is just the tapestry. The tapestry that's highlighting the canvas. People look at the tapestry and get, what should I say, beguiled and tempted by all the colors and the designs. But without the colors and the designs, the screen doesn't come out. The colors and the designs only go to enhance the screen. And that screen is Adhisthana. So really speaking, that which is you is called Adhisthana, the truth, the basis of everything. It cannot be taught as an object. But how to teach it as a subject is a very big, very big issue. Because when the student learns from the teacher, the student not only learns the Upanishad, the meaning of the purport of the Upanishad, the student learns how to teach. That is what is important. How to give that Tatparya and how to, unlock the words in a manner that they touch the heart. The words have to be soulful, pun intended, and they have to touch the heart. So everybody who comes to class, they have to have a little bit of spuranam, a little bit of that awakening of the bud of the lotus, a little blossoming, Of course, everybody cannot fully blossom all at once, but a little bit. The buds give way, everything just unfolds. And that unfolding happens because the teacher is a wordsmith, Vag Vilasa. Through the wordsmith, the teacher is a wordsmith, the teacher is also a fingersmith. Who is a fingersmith? It's a British expression. Pickpocket. Yes. Fingersmith. Wordsmith, and then what? Fingersmith. Oh. Safe travels.
Thank you.
Take care. Very nice you came. Oh. So, wordsmith, who is a fingersmith. So the wordsmith weaves you in a nice maze of words, correct? So it's a clever robber, the teacher is. The wordsmith weaves you and distracts your attention by saying wonderful things and making jokes and telling kuppan muppam stories. And then what happens? And the fingersmith takes away ajnanam. Yeah, the pocket is filled with ajnanam. Nonsense. One pocket has ajnanam, the other pocket has what? Viparita jnanam, wrong knowledge. I am an idiot, I am a donkey. This is filled in one pocket, and that's full of, like small pebbles. They make a lot of noise, and they don't let the person, they're prickly also, they don't let the person sit and sleep. They're just pointy, and they, give you all kinds of bruises. And they rattle when you walk, and they don't let you sleep. So while awake, while asleep, Trishu Avasthasu, in all 3 states you are miserable, correct? And then what? So that is fingersmithed out, When the word play is going on, you're lured into this Shabda Jala, into this magic net of the Guru's words. And then what? And the Guru is also, operating another business. What is that? Just a petty thief. Guru is a petty thief? Yes. When you're not looking, this pocket full of stones is gone. All kinds of stones, stony edges of my own personality is just spirited away when you're not looking, when you're caught in this wonderful maze days of words. And then what? The other pocket, which has ajnanam, empties itself out simultaneously. Yeah, because when the viparita jnana, when the wrong assumptions are gone, ajnanam goes away. Wrong assumptions are removed. That is the broods of ajnanam. So when you take the babies of ajnanam away, Mataji cannot live without her babies. So she goes behind them. Mother goes behind the babies, and the babies of ignorance are what? I don't love myself, I'm self-critical, I'm an idiot, therefore I have all these desires, and because of the desire I have pressures, and I have to do something about it. I am a doer, I'm wanting this or the other infinitely, I'm seeking the finite, and then therefore I have, papa, punya, good karma, bad karma, and as a result of that I have rebirth. These are the babies of ignorance. And so, if you want to get the mother's attention, just kidnap one or two of those fellows, little rascals. You kidnap them, and then the mother will go searching for them, and you are rid of the whole brood. Yes, parampara of ajnanam has to go before the importance of Guru parampara sinks in. So through these 6 lingas and everything, so there are 2 things happening. So through the Vedanta Shastra, the pickpocket is taking place. These are all technical, because the pickpocket is a very technician, has to work, has to see. First has to accidentally bump into the person to see if the other person notices. But if the other person is like a buffalo vritti, not noticing anything, thick-skinned, then this person says, "Oh Bhagavan, you are lovely. Today you have given me a very easy customer." Very nice, because the person didn't make a move. And this fellow went and bumped against him. And he was as though, very, having equanimity. And samatvam. And sometimes samatvam comes at a cost. And so these pockets got emptied. And so like this, the pickpocket is a technician. You can't just pick anybody's pocket at any time. You have to, look and see what method works for this particular pocket. Each pocket has a method. There is a bulging pocket, there is a, pocket with a flap and a covering on it, and there is a pocket that doesn't look like a pocket, that invisible pocket which kind of is in between. You don't see it, but it is a hidden pocket. It's still a pocket. A side pocket, front pocket, back pocket, so many pockets. And each of them rattling with all kinds of misapprehensions. Pocket is equal to jiva, okay? Yeah. I want you to pocket that. And yeah, so like so many jivas, all of them are just, one of them is hidden, one of them. So each one, the pickpocket has to have a strategy. Sometimes you bump into, you can't bump into everybody. You can only bump into the buffalo person. Then, then that works. For somebody else, you may need a long little something to, pick the button off and then do it, a 2-part operation. And then, now from pocket we go to jivas. Some jivas are easily, they lend themselves to being stolen from, the ignorance being gone. Very easy, Some jivas are made of sterner stuff, and they need a little more, elaborate operations that are described here as upakrama, upasamhara, shadlingas. Tatparya nirnaya, what is really at stake, how to approach this particular student, how to steal the ignorance from this particular person, because each thing differs. And it's all happening in a group, which is what is very mesmerizing, because how is the teacher thinking about about me? And how does teacher think about my pocket has a flap and I am a very rigid jiva and I'm all, I'm holding on to the ignorance. How does the teacher know me? And, the teacher knows you. No, but I'm in a group with 15 other people, 50 other people, let it be 500 other people. It is always dual. It is always one-on-one. Appropriate, because we are talking of removing, stealing, duality. Appropriate, paradoxically appropriate. And so, sometimes, the pocket, if you, pick the pocket, the person catches hold of that hand which went inside the pocket and turns the person in. So such jivas are also there. They turn the guru in. Yeah, guru is doing bad things to me, like that, wrong assumptions. So the guru is very careful and knows which method is applicable to which jiva, and it's a custom tailor-made method. And it is in the technical, shastra known as Shadlingas, 6 ways through which the Tatparya is done that. And so Vyavasthitihi, through a methodical way, and while keeping the Vagvilasa general chorus in the background, everything is beautifully done. Shastrasya vyavasthi, shastrarthanam, the meaning of the shastra is beautifully unfolded. How Visheshataya, that is the pocket with the flap, without the flap. Samanyataya, that stealing and finger smithy is taking place. Through that, everything is beautifully taken care of. Vedashastra virodhena.
Vedashastra virodhena.
Wrong. Vedashastra virodhena.
Vedashastra virodhena.
Moksha marga praveshanam.
Moksha marga praveshanam.
Sampradaya parigyanam.
Sampradaya parijnanam.
Matabheda vinirnayaha.
Matabheda vinirnayaha.
Yeah, 2 more verses on what all this pickpocketing entails. So first 2 methodologies we have seen. One is distraction, correct? Because you have to distract the victim whose ignorance is going to be stolen. Because the victim, the ahankara, is not going to, although feels victimized, but is not going to give up the ignorance easily. Agrahanam and anyatha grahanam are not going to be given up. Nobody says, here, Guru, please come and take my ignorance. The student plays hard to get. Here, take, no, take, no, come on, you haven't yet dismissed my ajnanam. And Guru says, okay, I'm coming after you. No. And goes away, So therefore, the teacher, poor teacher, has to have a few other tricks up the sleeve. And so, first what is there? Moksha marga praveshanam. Entrance into the marga, the path of moksha. What is the path of moksha? Come on. Path. Psychopath, sociopath, what path? What path of moksha? What is the path? There is no path. You are mukta, correct? You are free. What path is there? There is no path. But this no path is the path. The path here is path of knowledge. And the path of knowledge, because what is the separating factor between you and freedom is not karma, not space, nor time, nor action, but ignorance. So the ignorance is removed by knowledge, so this is the knowledge. And that knowledge is called the path here. Sankhya Yoga, the path of knowledge. And so, this path of knowledge, moksha marga praveshanam. So the Kuru here is a cowherd. That's why Krishna is a cowherd. And in 2 ways. Herds all the cattle-like students who are wanting to stray here and go astray here and there, nibble on this side something and nibble on that side something, go somewhere, go here, go there, not coming in a proper line. So the Guru is like a cowherd, moksha marga praveshanam. How? Because the road is that of Shastra. That's why it corrected the chanting. Because first people chanted Veda Shastra Virodhena. Virodha means in opposition to Veda Shastra. No. Avirodhena. Without opposing what is written in the Veda, meaning going anukula, Shastra anukulatvat, going according to the Shastra, Shastra anukulena, going according to the Shastra, taking the path that is given in the Shastra, Sankhya Yoga, Karma Yoga, like that, Jnana Yoga, Karma Yoga, like this, you can, you have, the correct options and the correct ways in which you can go, through the Shastra, and that is what the teacher does. Teacher puts you in touch with the Shastra, and the Shastra has a very nice influence on your life, a disciplining and a surrounding influence. It surrounds you like a security blanket, the Shastra, the way of life, in order that you assimilate the vision. Because you're not any longer floundering. You are very much there. Okay? And so all this is just included here. So Veda Shastra Avirodhena. So the student says, I want only to sit in front of the Guru, I don't want Veda Shastra. I don't want Vedanta. And the teacher may say, okay, no problem. So what should I do now, Guru? You just do a little bit of japa. Few malas you do. Om Namah Shivaya. Oh, that's easy, because you said I'll do, not because Shastra says. Okay, no problem. Guru is the replica of Shastra. So if you listen to Guru, Guru is just going to give you Shastra. So even the rebel of Shastra comes in line because they are with the Guru, they are associated with the teacher, with the sadhu. And then what? Sampradaya Parijnanam. And the proper understanding of the Sampradaya, the importance of being given this knowledge methodically, systematically and paramparically. Is that a word? No, it is. Parampara. Yeah, so paramparically, Adivriddhi takes place if you put an adjective. So paramparyena. So according to the parampara means according to how my teacher taught me and their teacher taught them and his teacher taught her and her teacher taught him and all like this. So according to that alone it is unfolded. So Moksha Marga Praveshanam and Sampradaya Parijnanam, Paritaha Jnanam, the full knowledge of what it takes to gain this. All the antecedents, where one is just in awe of all the gurus, one is just cannot help oneself but be in awe of all the gurus. It's just so fantastic. And so that is Vedanta Shastra Parijnanam or Sampradaya Parijnanam, and then finally what? Mata Bheda Vinirnayaha. Mata Bheda Vinirnayaha. Mata Bheda Vinirnayaha means all the dismissal of wrong views. Dismissing wrong views and ascertaining what is the correct view. How will you know? Because for example, in one Upanishad, Jnanam means knowledge. In another Upanishad, Jnanam means meditation. Same thing with Vidya. How are you going to know which is what is where? How on earth are you going to know? You can't know. You don't know by yourself. You know how your teacher is unfolding, and if you ask the teacher, how do you know? He or she is going to say, that's how my teacher taught me. Then you go right up to the Upanishad, and the Upanishad says, Yena stadvyacha chakshire. This is how our teachers taught us. Upanishad says. Kena Upanishad, very beautiful. And so therefore, this whole thing is all heavily dependent on what went before. Para. And here is avara, what follows. Apara is what follows and para is what went before. So what went before is eulogized because it has in it the secrets of teaching this knowledge without entropy. And this is an important thing because the doubt can come here. How come this knowledge is, You say it's without entropy. It has gone through so many generations. And then, like how we play telephone game, Karna Parampara, and what do you say? By the side, you say molehill, and by the time it goes through 20 people, it has become a mountain, right? Why? Because, there is distortion. Here, distortion is not possible. Why?
It's already achieved.
Yeah, it's you. It's Swatasiddha, it's self-luminous, it's self-evident. Because it is self-evident, it cannot be distorted. And distortions are already there. How many more distortions can you put? That is why you are here in the first place. You have a distorted perception of yourself, so therefore you want to remove the distortions. So we are not adding anything here which can get itself distorted, we are just removing. But what if you remove the I rather than the not I? Ayyo Rama. Ayyo. That's all you have to say. Because the I cannot be removed. Oh, Habba, thank God. That was a soul-searching moment, yes. That's what it is. I cannot be removed. So whatever is removed is not I. Oh, thank God. That made me feel a lot better. Thank you for saying that. Anytime. I'll say it one more time. Whatever is removed is not I. Through generations of gurus, only the nonsense is removed. And the I sense is removed, I remains. The I sense is nonsense. Because I sense I'm an idiot. That's nonsense. Wo jayega, that is removed. And what remains, yad avashishyate, tat brahma. What remains is Brahman, what remains is you. Oh, how many of us? No, only you emphasized many times. Oh, thank God. What about the inner children? They also go away. But I don't want them to go away. They won't go away, they'll be integrated. They're taken to baby care. That's all. They'll be handed back to you. After Shikshana, what is that? Baby care? What is that called? Creche. You take them to the creche and baby care, and then you hand it back later. Yeah. That's what it is. So that they don't disturb right now, since the teaching is taking place, taken to baby care, again through Mata Bheda Vinirnaya, because the inner child is screaming and it is given something to do. Translate these Sanskrit verses. Oh, okay. Fantastic, I can do that. Why don't you do this? Oh, I can do that. Why don't you go to the market? I can do that. So this is what the inner child is kept busy so that it doesn't disturb. And this is one of the other ways, this is parampara. This is through, that's why every ashram has Goshala, paramparaya. Yes, Goshala is where you go, for what? To get some shala, schooling in composure, from composure to compassion. This is where you are schooled, is in Goshala, cowshed. Yeah, you thought you wanted to learn Vedanta, the teacher hands the key, dingle dingle, off to the cowshed. But what am I going to do there? Make some patties. Patties? Aloo tikki? No. Cow dung patties. Oh, but that's so awful. Horrible. What a horrid job you have given me. Well, adversarial conditions build character. That's what it's all about. So, this is how Matabheda Vinirnaya takes place. Matabheda is, should I go for this guru or should I go for another guru? Should I go to this ashram or another? Where is the food better? I think I should go there. Where do you get more days off? I should go there. All this is a nonsensical distraction. So the nonsense is removed through various methods that have already been defined, and these are all not new methods. They are as old as the hills. They are as old as the parampara, because the parampara has every trick in the trade of how to deal with the recalcitrant student. No problem at all. And then what? And then one more thing. Mata Bheda Vinirnaya. Finally, you settle down. The settling down happens in sadhu sangati. being with a teacher makes you settle down, because all the inner children are romping everywhere and they have settled down. And then, you were having so many complaints, fears, tears, those have settled down as a result of the teaching. And now the teaching can proceed, and all the wrong conclusions and thoughts which you had internalized are settling down. And this settling is called Matabheda Vinirnaya. Starting with what to pursue, how much to pursue, when to pursue, all these things. And should I submit or not? Should I surrender or not? Surrender the one that's doubting first. That's what we would say. So like this, Matabheda Nirnayaha Api, this is what also happens, everything settles down. Then what? One more technique is given, Purvottarabhyam Pakshabhyam
Purvottarabhyam Pakshabhyam
Yesham Vakya
Yesham Vakya
Avapyate
Avapyate
Purvottarabhyam Pakshabhyam
Purvottarabhyam Pakshabhyam
Yesham Vakyadavapyate
Yesham Vakyadavapyate
Jnaninah Karnadharaste
Jnaninah Karnadharaste
Wrong. Jnaninah Karnadharaste
Jnaninah Karnadharaste
Dharaste. Not dharaste. Jnaninah Karnadharaste
Jnaninah Karnadharaste
Sevitavya hi sadhavah.
Sevitavya hi sadhavah.
Yeah, so two more things are given. Purva uttarabhyam pakshabhyam yeshad vakya yesham vakyad avapyate. Catch hold of the verb avapyate. Ap prapyate, that which is gained. What is gained? Purvottarabhyam pakshabhyam, meaning the matabheda vinirnaya, the decision of what to really believe in and what to really go after and which interpretation is the correct one, is gained through the specific ways in which the tradition has put up these punching bags called Purva Pakshis, and the punching bags are mythical opponents which are actually living inside oneself, like Asuras. One may be even afraid to ask certain questions, but those things are there. Those voices are there. The voices of doubt, the voices of despair, the voices of not wanting to go along with what is the teaching. That's called Purva Paksha. And it has been incarnated into a quintessential opponent. And then you practice the punching bag to make your Vedantic muscles stronger. You punch against it. And when you punch against it, what happens? You become stronger by sparring with the opponent. So the mythical opponents are put up by the teacher, and you are taught to spar with the opponent so that you come out victorious and don't come under the spell of the opponent, who has, of course, a litany of wrong beliefs. So Purva Paksha is the opponent, Uttara Paksha is the correct belief of, not correct belief, is the fact. That which removes the wrong belief and wrong notions is the fact that you are limitless. So that is Uttara Paksha. So with regard, Purvottarabhyam Pakshabhyam of this, the exposition of Vedanta through this dual, right and wrong, and how you have to keep understanding the right and wrong, and through that, which is gained through what? Yesham Vakyad Avapyate. Through the teacher's words you gain this. Because what are the teacher's Vakyas? Mahavakyas. Through the teaching of the Mahavakyas, which expounds or unfolds the equation between Jiva and Ishvara, you gain a correct understanding how to spar with those sparring opponents, those mythical partners, and your, strength in your own arguments and your own understanding gets deeper and more, balavan, more forceful. And so that is the first line. Jnaninaha karnadharaha te. This is a pun. We have to understand this pun, then it will be a lot of fun. So first we'll understand the karnadharaha has two meanings. One is the helmsman. Helmsman means the person who is the boatman, ferryman. And paksha also means bank. Purva paksha, the bank that is behind. Uttara paksha, the bank towards which you are rowing. You are leaving Purva paksha and rowing towards Uttara paksha. And you can't do it on your own. The boatman, here the ferry person, the teacher is guiding you. The teacher is handing you the oars and saying, no, steer the boat in this direction. And that person is called Karnadhara. So there are two banks. Paksha means banks. So should I bank on the previous bank? No, don't bank on that bank, because that bank is full of robbers. That bank is full of all kinds of wrong things and ideas. So you're leaving the bank of wrong notions in the boat, manned by the teacher, womaned by the teacher, and then you're headed towards the right bank, Uttara Paksha, of the proper teachings, and then the teacher becomes Karnadhara, correct? So that is the underlying meaning. You look at the Uttara Paksha. Paksha means side, bank. So you look at the Purva Paksha as the bank that you are leaving behind in the boat. You say bye bye, and you are going towards Uttara Paksha, the correct way of thinking. And then on the sea, as you are passing that island and you are saying bye bye to Purva Paksha, you biff a few crocodiles on the way with the back of your oar. You just take the sharks and crocodiles, you ward off, and then you keep, and the Guru helps you to ward off the crocodiles of despair, doubt and wrong ideas, and you are headed towards what? Uttara Paksha. You are headed towards the right bank. You have left the left bank and then you are headed to the correct bank. And then the teacher becomes Karnadhara, the boat person who is the guide, who says, no, that's got a riptide, that's got a crocodile, don't you see its nose coming up and down, don't you see that triangular tail, steer clear of all this, come this side, why are you getting distracted? No, but they said something to me, forget them, come this side. So the teacher guides, so that's one meaning. Second meaning, you take Purva Paksha, Uttara Paksha as the regular, Purva Paksha, Uttara Paksha, the sparring opponents and the correct way of understanding and internalizing the teaching. And then Karnadhara here becomes, Karnadhara means the one who carries a stream of words through the ears. The carrier of the tradition is called Karnadhara. There is a pun. So there is a pun on Paksha and there is a pun on Karnadhara, and interestingly it's a Viparita pun, because when you use the pun on Paksha, then the Karnadhara doesn't work, and when you use the pun on Karnadhara, the Paksha doesn't work. Did you follow? Yes? Yeah. So only one pun works at a time. So you see the Paksha as the bank, then Karnadhara is not, the one who carries the parampara. Karnadhara is a simple boatman. Then you say, Karnadhara is the one carrying the parampara, then you cannot see Paksha as the bank. You have to see it as the two sides of the argument, okay? Very beautiful. So therefore, Jnaninaha, these Jnanis that we are talking about, and he is very hopeful that there is more than one, so he uses the plural. So Jnaninaha, Sadhavaha, these sadhus who are jnanis, not just sadhus, but sadhus that are jnanis, Karnadharaha te, therefore he, yasmat, therefore, because of which, sevitavyaha, they should be worshipped. Yeah, sevitavyaha, they are worshipful, they are to be, to be revered. You have to take them seriously. And sevitavyaha also, they should be enjoyed. How do you enjoy a jnani? by being with the Jnani and following the Jnani. That's how the Jnani is best enjoyed. Not as a side dish, as a main dish. If the Jnani is a side dish, then it's forgotten. It's one among the many. So make the teacher into the main dish and you become the bhokta. That's what it is. You enjoy the teacher by making this a primary pursuit. One time Pujya Swamiji said in a big group that if Vedanta doesn't come first, 1, 2, 3 in your life, it should be either the first pursuit or the second pursuit or the third pursuit. And okay, he said, then people were like looking alarmed. So he said, okay, fourth pursuit. If it is not 1, 2, 3 or 4, he says, I don't want you. He said that. Then Vedanta is not for you and you are not for Vedanta. I don't want you. He was not rejecting, but he said, what's the use? If Vedanta ranks number 11 on your list, bucket list, that too, and then what's the point? You'll never get to that list. So Vedanta should be 1, 2, 3. That's it. And 4, okay, residual, because Turiya is there, so we should give a nod to Turiya and say, all right. So you should have 4, let's say you have first 3 priorities and Vedanta is not one of them, theek hai, no problem, but at least it should be the 4th priority. And let's say you say marriage, children, job, or job, marriage, children, marriage, job, whichever way, doesn't matter, marriage, job, children, whatever it is. Then you have these priorities, and then the 4th one should be, better be Vedanta. Otherwise this is not going to, this Karnadhara cannot do anything, because the Karnadhara also says that this is Sevitavyaha, that is your contribution here. Sevitavyaha must be enjoyed, must be entertained. You have to give them the benefit of doubt and you have to make this a priority. Get into the boat. Get into the boat right now. Don't wait for the tide. Yeah. Because time and tide wait for none, says a cliche. Okay. So, Sevitavyaha, by who? Tvaya. Sevitavyaha Tvaya. By you, they have to be worshipped, they have to be followed, they have to be enjoyed. By making your priorities clear to them, then only do that. And just to tell you, he's not making it up. He says, Tatha cha Gita Tadvidhe pranipatena Pariprashnena sevaya Upadekshyanti te jnanam Jnaninas tattvadarshinah. This is a quote. Tatha cha Gita. So he takes pride and happy in a good way. He takes happiness in the fact that even the Gita is concurring and underscoring what he has said in this section. And the Gita has said that in 4th chapter, 36th verse. Tadvidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya. How to know that I am Brahman? 3 methods please follow. Pranipata. Pranipata means namaskara, surrender, bending. Bending has to be practiced because the bending is very good. Bending helps in a lot of ways because bending helps to enact the surrender that one should cultivate, that one ought to cultivate. Bending helps to enact that surrender that one is slowly cultivating. So pranipata, and and the other thing about pranipata is the fact that it is kaya, vachasa, manasa. Not just physically I do namaskar, but my mind is elsewhere, or I refuse to do namaskar and saying I have in my mind bent. No, that's not enough. You have to bend physically, and in the mind is also doing namaskara, the body is doing namaskara, the words are also equally saying namaskara. And what does that bending do? That bending removes the ego. That's very important. removes it or lightens it enough so that it can come to class. Yeah, because otherwise there's so much, I notion. Why should I bend? Why should I do this? Why should I do that? That I notion dissipates with the bending. That I notion is not so problematic anymore. And in the bending, this is how Shraddha functions. Going back to the first verse, it's appropriate because we are looking at it now. Not the first verse of today, which is actually the fourth verse, I think. And so the word Shraddha came. This is how Shraddha, functions. Your Shraddha in the teacher validates the teaching, really, for you. Just like your Shraddha in the therapist makes the therapy work. It's all because of your Shraddha. So you validate the therapist to validate you, really. So you validate the teacher to teach you. So that Shraddha, so that's why it's so important, because it's like you're giving yourself the permission to learn. That is pranipata, the giving yourself the permission to learn and asking for help, because you can't do it on your own. And when one is asking for help, one is not strutting around like a peacock. One is bent. There is a humility to ask for help. And you acknowledge the help given, both through this bending, and that bending is here eulogized, tad vidhi pranipatena. And then what? This is not just a blind belief. Pariprashna is there. Pariprashna means asking the right questions at the right time in the right manner. Pariprashna. And then finally, seva. Gurukula seva, Guru seva, whatever is needed is done to upkeep the teaching and to help out. And that also takes away all the ragadveshas and matures the mind for the knowledge. And if these three things are there, there is a promise. Upadekshanti te jnanam. They will definitely teach you. Who? Jnaninaha. Brahmanishtha. Tattvadarshinaha. Shrotriya. So, both who have studied from their teacher and they are immersed or dwelling in Brahman as themselves, they are non-separate from that. They will all teach you. They will definitely teach you, meaning if you have everything, what is written here, you will gain the knowledge. And again, cleverly, while talking about the Guru, he has inserted the Shishya's qualifications as well, while talking about the Guru. Very beautifully done. And more we will see on April 30th at 9:30. This class will meet again on April 30th. I'll put it also on the website. And the next section we are about to do, I'll give you a preview. It is in my book on page 148, and it is section 13. From 8 to 13 we are going to go, unless I decide otherwise. But so far I have seen, I think this would be a good skip.
So just from 8 on.
Yeah, we are now on 8. And we will go to 13. Bhakti Rasayana, very lovely section. The elixir or the rejuvenation tonic called Bhakti. So this is what we are looking forward to on April 30th. And then after that, the date for May, etc. will be announced. May, June will be announced to the subsequent classes. Okay. So April 29th we have Mundaka Upanishad, and April 30th we have this class. April 29th at 7:30 in the morning, and then April 30th at the same time, 9:30. Okay. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om. Harihi Om. That's it. Thank you.